It was so beautiful because I had not even realized how much I had sort of lost so much of myself when I started gardening. And it was really, I really got to tap back into my intuition and a deeper sense of self confidence. I'm a confident gal. I didn't think I was missing that until I started the garden. And then it really gave me a boost into feeling just more of who I am. I had no training. I did not hire anyone. I actually didn't even read very many books. I mostly just went out there and was like, let's play. Like, I want to do this for fun, like for my heart. I feel called to it. This is my space. It's not my husband's. It's no one else's. Like, and I just let that lead. And I was so, because when you come at it from that perspective too, again, which wasn't even really by design, it is very much my personality. I'm a little bit of more of a type B than a type A. So I'm kind of like, let's just like throw caution to the wind. Like, let's be crazy. And so I got to do that again. And it was so lovely. And then I started basically forming better questions so that I could feed my knowledge in a more pointed way, which is something that I was grateful I got to experience. 'Cause essentially, experts are just people that know how to ask the right questions, right? And they know how to get the right answers. So just a few levels beyond you on that. And so there was one book I found before I gardened, but didn't read until after I got started, which was interesting, called The Postage Stamp Garden by Dwayne Newcomb. And it was from like the 70s. And this little book, it was like poking out of this thrift store shelf. I was thrifting with my dad, who has since passed. It was like a really beautiful trip with him. And he knew I wanted to garden. He learned to garden from this Swiss man. It's this like amazing story. Anyways, I grabbed that book, never read it, sat on my shelf. Then I started gardening in my first season, and I'm like, I think I have a gardening book I should poke through. Read that cover to cover. And to this day, it's one of my favorite books I've read because it really leans into the approach that I take when it comes to the purpose of my gardening and how I do it. So, a lot of biodiversity, all organic. I'm gardening for max yield. So, I squish everything together more than a conventional gardener would tell you to do. And so, that's kind of how I went at it. And then once I started becoming just in love with gardening, read one book, that's when I started leaning in and getting really into, because then I started figuring out like, why are my peppers so small? Oh, companion planting. It's probably getting nutrients stolen from the tomato it's next to. Then I'm like digging into companion planting, and then I'm finding books. And then I was like next level, getting my PhD in kitchen gardening on
Yeah.
my own. Just couldn't and still I cannot consume enough information about it. Like, I listen to these British gardening podcasts, and I'm reading obscure books like that you can only find in bookstores, because anything before the internet just has better information. And anyways, that's how.
And there's nothing like those British gardens. I could do a whole tour of England in the spring just to see their gardens. It's absolutely incredible. And I really admire those skills to be able to layer, whether they're layering vegetables and fruits, but it's the layer of plants. I find it fascinating. And, it takes a lot of deep knowledge and patience to do that.
For sure. It's so wild. I do that within my beds because I like my garden to be pretty. Like, I like it to look
Mhm.
interesting and dynamic. And I get flack for that sometimes online, where people are like, you don't need rate, like you can just garden in the ground like our Mimas did. And I'm like, yes, of course you can. But like, it's so lovely to have the garden really beckon you in and have these layers and these dynamics, so that visually there's a visual component to nature that is just as healing as being in it. I mean, just looking out your window at a green space is known to reduce anxiety and depression. We can't discount the beauty component. That's a part of it. But yeah, the layering, and then it's like knowing how to grow the plants, anticipating the way they're going to look when they're mature, so that you're getting the impact when someone walks in through the life cycle of the garden, is a whole nother side of it. To your point, I also admire those insanely like gorgeous British gardens. It's this knowledge too that's passed down, and you learn it. I don't know. It's just all of it. It's endless in such a beautiful way.